Yeah, I got some beautiful scallops here that I'm going to be using for a risotto tonight. These were a frozen scallop, so I thawed them, that's a tricky word. I thawed them overnight in the fridge. And you can see I have, what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 scallops here. And I didn't get a lot of liquid, and that's because I've thawed them properly. I took them out, I threw them in here, popped the lid on, put them in the fridge right away. And when you thaw things overnight like that, you get a little bit less moisture loss than if you let them sit out or tried running them underwater. So here we have the next day. This is what they're like. So the one thing we want to keep an eye on with the scallops, there's not much prep to do with them, but we do want to remove this abductor muscle here. And we just do that by taking that off. And we remove this because it's very tough. This is the muscle that controls the shell. So it works hard. So you want to get rid of that. Now there isn't much you could do with these. I used to grind them up when I used to make a seafood sausage, but I mean, not all of the scallops when you buy them frozen have that on there. So really, by the time you try to wrap something like that and throw it in the freezer, you know, it's going to get lost in there. So it's better just to discard them. Now these are a 10-20 count scallop. So when you buy the scallops, it's a lot like buying prawns or buying shrimp. They come like, 1620, 1625, what have you. The 1020 just means it's between 10 and 20 per pound. And the lower the number, the bigger the scallop. So I like these 10-20 count because I can get a nice sear on the outside, flip them over, get another nice sear, and it doesn't overcook. I find you can get some really small ones that, I don't know, by the time you saute them or try to get any color on them, they're overcooked. And this is something we don't want to overcook. I also used to use these for like a scallop ceviche, or when I worked out in Vancouver at Piccolo Mondo, we used to turn these on their side and then slice them paper thin and do like a scallop carpaccio. So the bigger scallop was easier to work with. But like I said, these I'm going to serve up tonight. I'm going to just pan fry them and top them with a risotto. So when it comes to cooking the scallops and getting that nice sear, that nice crust, um, moisture is our enemy. So a few hours before dinner, I've got my container here. I've got some paper towel. I've got them on there. And I'm just going to put another piece of paper towel on top, like so. And I'm going to put these back in the fridge, and they're ready for dinner. Now, I only want to do this a few hours ahead. The thing is, if you leave it in here overnight like this, what ends up happening is they get really dry, and then the paper towel will shred and start sticking to this. You only want to do this a few hours before. And then you can saran wrap this, pop it in the fridge, and then we'll come back a little bit later when I'm finished the risotto, and I'll show you how we cook up the scallops as well. Okay, so we've had our scallops have been in between the paper towel for a few hours now so that they're nice and dry. This is going to make them a lot nicer to crisp up in the pan. Again, always remember, and moisture is your enemy when it comes to browning. So I got my pan here preheating to cook these. I'm going to add myself a little bit of oil, and then I'm going to add myself a little bit of butter. I'm just going to grab my salt and pepper here. So while this is melting down, I'm just going to season up the scallops. Just a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. I'm going to get this nice and hot because I want to cook these very quickly, basically like a minute, maybe a minute and a half on each side, and they're done. We don't want to overcook these. They just turn to rubber. Again, get my seasoning going. You see it's starting to bubble here. Once those bubbles kind of subside, we know that our butter oil mixture will be ready for cooking. You can see there now the bubbling's kind of stopped. We're getting a little bit of smoke action, so now it's the perfect time to add our scallops, just like so. And like I say, this is a very, very quick process. They will splatter a little bit on you, so you stand back a little bit. Now, you can do, as long as you've got that butter, that oil nice and hot, you can use any kind of pan for this. And when you get it hot like that, you add the scallops. Notice how we're not playing around with them. Because what happens is when they hit the pan, they are going to stick to the pan. But as they brown and caramelize, they release from the pan. So that's how we, even using a pan that's not a non-stick, you can brown the scallops, chicken, anything like that, just by being a little bit patient. Then we're going to flip these over. Look at this beautiful crust we've got on there. Another minute on this side, and then they're good to go. When they are ready, if I'm going to be serving these are going to go on top of a risotto. So I will just take them out and put them directly on the risotto. If I'm putting them on a plate with a little bit of like a steak, I'm doing like a surf and turf, I'll get some, I will get some fresh paper towel, and then I will just take them out of the pan and just let them rest for a minute. I'll knock that heat off so we don't start a fire. I will let them rest for a minute, just so, if you put them on right away, sometimes they leak out a lot of juice and it gets in your sauces and that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter if it's a risotto or pasta, but maybe on a steak, if you're doing a nice reduction, you don't want that. Let it sit for a minute, drain. You can see some of the stuff that comes off it there. And then these are good to eat.